everybody, and welcome to Behind the Camera with AndyGames. This is the podcast where I interview streamers and content creators with the sole purpose of getting to know the person a little bit better behind the camera. Today's guest, we have Bennett. Bennett is a Pokemon and Diffraction creator. Bennett, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. Home today. Got a short week for work this week, and then I'm out for Thanksgiving for a week and a half or half a week. So I'm excited.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. And thank you again for taking the time to come on behind the camera as well, especially on, the middle of your Sunday. Is always very much appreciated. So the format of today is I have a few questions for you. I have sent these to you previously, so we'll just kind of get to it. We'll just have a bit of a chat and just get to know you a little bit better. So first of all, take us back to the beginning. What has your gaming journey looked like from the start, and what led you into streaming from that?
So I think like many people my age, to go back. Thank you for having me on. First off,
No, of course.
uh, I would just be spending my Sunday. Uh, but with that, like I was saying, I think like many people my age, gaming has kind of always been around, and it's always been a very heavily influenced thing in my life. I have very vivid memories of playing N64. I have a very vivid memory of getting Pokemon Blue for Christmas, uh, and watching my cousin, or no, it was Pokemon Yellow, and watching my cousin play through it because I barely was able to read then. Uh, I have vivid memories of my cousins from California coming out to Virginia, where I live, uh, every summer, and us playing uh, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, Donkey Konga, Smash Bros, and just all these games. So gaming has always been just part of my life. And as far as what led me to get into content creation and streaming, in high school, I always thought, I'd love to do this. I love being in front of people. I love making people smile, making people laugh. And it kind of just fuses the two of them. It, allows me to put out my passions while giving other people enjoyment. And so, excuse me, in high school, I always thought YouTube, but I never really had the time or energy or drive to actually sit down, learn long term editing, that kind of stuff. So I never really got into it. I did a couple videos forever ago that are now deleted for nobody to ever see again because they were horrible. And then in college, Vine came around. I never got into Vine for whatever reason. It just never piqued my interest. And then that disappeared, and then TikTok popped up, and it was one of those things where it's like, you know what? I did this thing called Chalky Milk Monday in college where we just got together, we talked, and then we just chugged chocolate milk. So if anybody would like to see that, that is on my page every Monday still. So I just put that out into the world, thinking nothing of it, knowing it's a very weird and niche thing to do. Still do it every Monday because why not? Uh,
Yeah.
and then I just, you know, had slowly been building followers, had thought about doing some streaming. And then I stitched Dan Squared, who was also in Diffraction, and that video kind of blew up. So then I kind of was going into his streams, hanging out, and then kind of with, I don't want to say his push and encouragement, but it was, I joined Diffraction. I started streaming, got all the equipment I needed. Kind of just been it's been a fun journey for me. I've been doing it for 4, 5, 6 months now. I love it. I have great fun with it. So that's kind of how I got. That's my journey
Yeah.
getting into it, and
Yeah.
it's early on in my journey, and I'm excited to see where I kind of
No,
go
that's
from here.
awesome. Like, and it's funny you say that about the whole, like, a couple of YouTube videos that have been deleted for nobody else to see. I kind of feel like that is how 99% of creators like started out before they started out like and continued on consistently, because I know I've been like that. A lot of people I've interviewed in the past have been exactly the same, where it's just like, oh, I used to have this YouTube channel, I did this, but it's never see the light of day again. And like, yeah, TikTok as well, like coming on after Vine. I was a big Vine guy at the time as well. Like I mean, I know you said you weren't, but I was huge into Vine. And then like I kind of went the other way, where like I was like big into Vine and stuff, and then like TikTok came on, and it was just, for me it was kind of like, oh, it's just not the same, I think it was a sort of like Vine was like the birth of like short form content in its own right, because like obviously you had YouTube and stuff, but like it was almost like long, like you say, it was like, people didn't really want to get into the whole like editing side. There was a lot of effort and stuff and everything like that. So then obviously short form content, when that blew up, it was kind of like such a good in. And especially with the way that it's so like successful, or no, sorry, not successful, it's very like accessible for people to get into. Like for example, you saying you stitched a video from Dan Squared, and then that's kind of like essentially, would that be then essentially what led you into like the whole space with diffraction and everything like that? Was just by meeting Dan, by seeing one of his videos come up like randomly?
Honestly, yeah, that's exactly what it was. Dan had uh, kind of pushed to, you know, he was the one who really introduced me to diffraction. Uh, he had kind of been dropping hints just in his live streams when I'd be in there hanging out, playing Pokemon. And finally, one day, I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm in. Let's do it. Let's jump in head first. Let's jump into the deep end, see what it's all about. And, I couldn't have made a better choice.
No, for sure, for sure. So like tell us like a bit more about then your relationship with diffraction. Like so obviously we know how you got into it, and that was through Dan. You just kind of being like, right, let's just see how it goes. So like tell us about like the sort of like impact that they've had on you as a streamer, and like you go back like sort of 6 months to when like you started out, like compare like sort of then versus now, and just like sort of like describe like the impact that they've had on you.
Yeah, so before I joined Diffraction a lot, my videos were a little bit more sporadic in terms of when I would post outside of doing my daily chalky milk Mondays. I would miss, a week at a time and not really think too much of it. They've, through their trainings, through their Diffraction Academy, through the challenges they do, I think it's kind of pushed me to create better videos, learn how to be more engaging and get the engagement from the people who watch. And they just have allowed, with everything that Joe and Tom have put into Diffraction and Diffraction Academy, has really allowed me to just blossom and bloom more than I could have ever imagined just on my own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like since I've joined diffraction myself, like I've noticed that like when you try and do like content creation by yourself, you kind of think, okay, I have a good idea, I'm going to put a video out about this, and you put effort into the video, and it gets stuck in what people call like the 200 view jail. What I like think with the like agencies like diffraction and things like that, what they do is like they kind of are like, they can take your good idea, and like obviously it doesn't take away from the idea, it's like it's a good idea, but it's a little rough around the edges. Let's smooth it out, and let's sort of like, let us tell you how this can become like content that people want to watch. People will share to people, and that's how like things grow like that. And it is just the sort of things that like I think people don't realize. But it is good in that sense. Like, so then in terms of like, so your content in terms of what you stream, like you're a Pokemon streamer, so like is that part of the whole sort of staying consistent with your content, like, or is that just something you just enjoy doing as a whole?
Yeah, so my streams are, a lot of it is shiny hunting in Pokemon, but I've played, or I'm currently playing through Echoes of Wisdom, the new Legend
Mm-hmm.
of Zelda game. Uh, growing up, I loved the Backyard Sports series. So I've also done a little bit of streaming of Backyard Baseball,
Okay.
where we have uh, TikTok's own favorite baseball team, the Blue Sox. And actually, when I did, I think it was the first night that I had streamed Backyard Baseball. The creators of Backyard Baseball had actually jumped into my live stream for a little bit, so that was really exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
So my streams are a little bit more kind of just video games, but I do a lot of Pokemon because that is just something easy and people can join, and it's not something super stressful where it's if you miss, an hour, you miss a whole bunch of story.
Yep.
Uh, so that's kind of where I am with streaming. And then as far as you know, as far as my content goes, it's a little bit of Pokemon, but my content in feed is a little bit still kind of just what I want, trying to you know, shape it into being what I love, which is, Pokemon. I'm a huge fan of just TV, which we'll get to later. But that is where I still struggle is sitting down, planning out my content, and really like filtering it through like the very tiny niche hole
Yeah.
where I just kind of want to filter it through just a a colander where it's anything that can get through will get through.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think planning content is one of the hardest things you could do. Like streaming in its essence is like way easier in comparison because it's like you just get on, you pick your game, you push the button, you engage with chat. Like, and what I like about what you said, like about doing Pokemon, because it's easy. It's like as much as it's story driven, like it's if people miss out, they're not really missing on too much. And it's like to me that kind of says that you're more into like the entertainment side of things rather than this sort of like I'm a gamer streamer. This is what I do. I want to be the best kind of thing. Which kind of when you sort of take Pokemon into the equation, it kind of makes it sound very appropriate, doesn't it, with the theme song and everything. Um, but
Yeah.
but yeah, so like obviously with the entertainment side of things, especially because you have like your Chalky Milk Mondays, which I think is very brilliant. The fact that like there is a backstory to that, and it's not just something you're doing to like be a standout streamer. It's something that has like a bit of meaning to you from the past and everything. I think that's awesome. And I know your use of masks as well on stream. I know you have your horse mask and your duck mask as well, I believe.
Yes. We right?
It's just brilliant. Like I love it. Like it is. It's kind. It's that's something that I've kind of like. That was this sort of slight inspiration for me getting the masks as well on mine as well. Which I will be honest about. Like there's that, but I love it. I think it's a good. It's good to sort of like in terms of streaming, be I think more on the entertaining side of things because like it's one of those things as well. Like sometimes depending on what sort of like creator you want to be, sometimes your content does all the talking for you, but then other times it's your streaming that does all the talking for you. And I think it's sometimes better to fall under the sort of streamer side of things for that because I think it really helps like the viewers see how like personable you can be and sort of like who you are kind of almost as a person in that regard. But I 100% agree with you that content is like the hardest thing to kind of plan out because you can put all of the clips from your gameplay in the world into your content and it can go absolutely nowhere and like to the point where it's just like you're doing it because you just want to get like a clip out there but it's not necessarily like sort of the best way to go about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I really don't post a whole lot of clips from my live streams. I'll post, when I get a good like shiny reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but for the most part, I don't, post, oh, I got a galaxy. Here's me getting a galaxy, so you can come in and give me a galaxy. I don't. To me, that just feels ungenuine, and it
Yeah.
feels like you are pushing more for the profit side of things over I'm here to entertain you. You're here to provide, me some good comments so I can go off those. that's kind of where I come from, as with my mind space in streaming, is I'm here to entertain you. You guys are here because you enjoy hanging out with this random guy who's playing Pokemon wearing a duck mask, 2 nights a week.
Yeah, I think that's like the best way to go about it. Like, I mean, because I think, and this is something I say like all the time. Like, people sometimes get into streaming for the wrong reasons because they see it can be like quite profitable for them, or people are like, okay, I see this person doing this, seemingly making all this money. I want to I want a piece of that pie too. But like, what people don't understand is that there is a lot of work that goes into it. It isn't. It is obviously on the surface. It looks like you're just sort of sitting at your computer, pressing the live button, and then just playing a game and talking to people, which in its essence it is. But there is a lot more of a creative outlet that goes into it, creative input, and people don't really kind of. Not everybody has that, but it's a necessity when it comes into streaming. Like having these like sort of little segmented pieces in your streams, just as like a little something. Be like, oh, like for example, that's the Chalky Milk Monday guy. Things like that. Like it's sort of like I think you have to have like your kind of selling point in a way, and it is kind of like hard to find that balance in terms of like your streaming and your content in terms of that. But like I think sort of knowing the reason you're going in for it, or the reason why you're going into it, I should say, it really kind of helps sort of shape the kind of streamer that you want to be like going forward.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
then, I'm
it's
sorry, what?
I was gonna say it's funny that you call me you said like, oh, that's the chalky milk guy, because when my now wife and I were dating, she was telling her friends about me and like what I do on TikTok, and they all just started. He was like, oh, the chalky milk guy. So so when you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, that is not the first time I've been called that.
But see, that kind of shows like it just makes that ring true like even more. Like it's just like people, that's how people already know you. Like which is it's incredible, and I think that's like this sort of the power of social media in that regard. Um, so then how did that come about? Then I know you touched upon it earlier, but like how did that come about? Was that just something random, or was there like sort of thought process behind it?
The chalky milk
Yeah.
Mondays, it was a club where I went to college, and that's kind of how it popped off.
Oh, so it was just literally something in college like randomly kind of happened, and it was like, yeah, sure, let's keep it going.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was a college that I was a part of, uh, and when I left, I kind of just kept it up.
Yeah.
Uh, I was doing it on Snapchat for my friends for a little while. Uh, I would put, save those Snapchat videos and I would post them on certain Discord groups, which that's been ish plus years ago now. And then, the next logical step was let's go to TikTok.
Yeah. That's good. That's good that you've kept that going for as long as you have, and it's just there's a tradition. Like I'm sure, um, like something that I've kind of learned from doing this is that like if you don't have that kind of consistency, like sometimes it doesn't really stick with a lot of people. So like there could be someone like somebody in your community who's like sort of, oh, it's Monday, and like that part of the Monday, that the chocolate milk, like that's what they would like look forward to, like as part of their kind of their weekly viewing, I suppose you could say, and it's I think it is important to kind of have that consistency and stuff like that. So like in
Very much so.
yeah. So in terms of then like of your streaming, I know we've touched on this as well. So like, you're playing through Echoes of Wisdom at the moment. Like, do you tend to stick to sort of the more modern gaming? I know obviously it seems to be mostly in the realm of Nintendo, but like what would be the sort of like possibility of like a touch of retro? All things considered, like from where you started? Or would you be more into the just the
Yeah,
sort
no,
of
I'm not against going retro. I prefer to not do emulators just because I feel about them. I know some people love them, and I know a lot of people use them. I prefer going on the hard console
Yeah.
just because that's who I am. Uh, but I would, if if the right game came out, I would have no issues going retro. Backyard Baseball did just come out last month, and like I said, we have TikTok's team, the Blue Sox, on there. But that was pretty much just a re-release of Backyard Baseball '97.
Yeah.
Uh, so in terms of playing old school games, I don't really have an issue with the right game or right thing came up. I would have no issue streaming. Uh, Earthworm Jim, Mario 64, uh, anything.
Yeah.
I'm open to playing any and everything.
No, for
Uh,
sure. It
the
is
limitation
funny,
is what I have.
but it's funny. A couple of things that you mentioned there that are just like that really resonate with me specifically. So you say you're not a fan of using emulators, and being somebody who has been in like the Mario 64 space for an incredibly long time, there is like a long ongoing beef, I suppose you could say, with emulator players and console players. Now, it's more of a joke from console players in like this sort of like elitist kind of way. They're just like, I'll just play it on hardware because that's how the game was started. Emulator is just like it's just a copy, yada yada. You don't have like console lag and stuff. And then emulator players get all uptight about it and stuff. But like, it is just a joke. It's just this. But then you do get people who do take it like weirdly seriously, kind of thing. But I'm with
Yeah,
you on that sort of side because I I I grew up playing like yourself, grew up playing the consoles my entire life. And it's like, well, I'm obviously going to continue to do that because it's just what I'm used to. It kind of feels like if I'm going to emulate something, it'll be because if I want to play something, but I absolutely have to emulate it, or um, I'm just being lazy. But like 99% of things, like even like ROM hacks I play, I can get on my console anyway. So I kind of why not just use what like the you put an investment into sort of thing. And then the other thing when you mentioned Earthworm Jim, which I'm sure you know is Surtees tournament that he is running at the moment. Surtee, a good friend, is running a tournament at the moment. For those who do not know, and it's called the New Run Tournament. It's for speedrunners, and the first game was announced yesterday, and it is 1994's Earthworm Jim from the Sega Genesis, and that's been interesting to say the least. Have you ever played that game yourself, Bennett?
uh, I I might have played bits and pieces of it here and there through some random, weird game station thing on at some point in my life. But the reason I said Earthworm Jim was because of Surtees tournament coming up. So it was just top of my head.
Yeah.
Uh, but I've definitely played like bits and pieces of Earthworm Jim. Uh, I feel like I've something N64 for it forever ago, but I could be wrong.
Hmm. It does sound familiar when you say that. Like, 'cause I had I had like that game. It was on one of those like old Game Boy like 52-in-1 cartridges that you would get in like somewhere random, and that was one of the games on it. And like I remember whenever I booted it up there on the computer there yesterday and today, I was like, I recognize this, and I remembered it was from like basically the Game Boy version's the exact same. Oh my god, it's I can see why it's decent, but oh my god, it's difficult. It is
Yeah, that's
so difficult.
that's kind of my general like remembrance of
It sucks,
like the
man.
game was.
I don't know what I've gotten myself into is all I'm gonna say on that regard. Like let's just be glad you're
All I'm
not a
gonna say is
speedrunner, man.
all I'm gonna say is I'm glad it's not Battletoads, and I'm glad I don't have to deal with the Wave Runner level or whatever it's called.
Yeah, my God, it's I'm not even got that far yet, to be honest. I just it's gonna be a long 2 weeks of practicing is all I can really say on that front right now, to be honest. Um, but um, but yeah, like I think as well, sometimes the good thing about like emulation in that sort of sense is that it's things that are readily available. But like I get what you mean. Like I say, I'm the same. You're so used to playing on the consoles. Why wouldn't you just kind of do that? Like, do you have like still have like your old consoles, like your N64 and other things such as, or just be mainly your
I
Switch at the moment?
I just have my Switch. I moved in with my wife a little over a year, probably about a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing I brought down was my Switch. I still have my Wii. Uh, I still have my GameCube. Uh,
Mm.
the N64 had been sold off long ago.
Ah, I see.
Uh, but so so I had the Wii U. I had the SNES Classic. I had the SNES Classic, but all three of those were burnt in a fire
Oh, oh
last
wow.
year of college.
Oh,
Uh,
whoa.
so
How did what I was like? Was that just in like a college dorm or something, like a fire broke out, or what happened there?
yeah, so I was living in a apartment complex, and I I'm walking back to my apartment to grab headphones. And my friend calls me and goes, "Your apartment's on fire," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." Because what else do you do when you get that news?
Yeah.
Uh, the only thing kind of we learned was it was improper disposal of smoking material.
Hmm.
Uh, so somebody was smoking a cigarette or something and just threw it over and it smoldered in the mulch for a couple of days and the wind hit it just right and took lighting it right up the framing of the building.
Oh wow. That's insane. That's such yeah, it's kind of crazy how like that little bit of like negligence can just lead to something like that. And it's that's I mean, thank God nobody was in there at the time, like for real, but oh my God, that's like what do you do in that sort of like situation?
Yeah, we kind of just were just like, well, what do we do? And I mean, luckily nobody was hurt. There were no died.
Hmm.
There was a dog and a cat that were found like 2 or 3 days later that had survived everything. Uh, but luckily where I went to school, which was James Madison University, go Dukes. Uh, Luckily everybody uh, rallied around it, and uh, we all were able to get a good chunk of money to recuperate all the stuff we had lost.
Oh,
So
that's good. That's good. Like it's nice that people can band together in like sort of a situation like that to sort of help you out and all. That's good. I suppose it's like kind of a silver lining and all that, really. But yeah, that's insane. Like, so of course, yeah, that kind of makes sense as to why you don't have those old consoles anyway. They're probably not the
yeah,
easiest to get back at the time either.
yeah. The Wii U, I loved the Wii U. It had some great games. Uh, but I just kind of called that one a loss
Mm-hmm.
because no, I had my Wii U and my original Switch. This is my second Switch.
Oh, right, okay.
I had my Wii U and my Switch in there because it was in 2019, and so I did a wrestling podcast like we were talking about before we went live.
Mm-hmm.
All of those guys pitched in and bought me my new Switch. Uh, so luckily, that was able to happen. Uh, and so we I don't have my Wii U, but when I really wasn't playing the Wii U, I loved the SNES and the NES classics, but we say, oh well, we move on, we still march forward.
Yeah, that is very true. I think as well in regards to the Wii U, I don't think many people really have one of them anymore. To be honest, like I don't really think very many people ever had my Wii U. They were. I mean, I kind of like wanted one at the time, but like I never got around to it. And then it was like all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, the Switch came out, and I was kind of like, oh, okay. Well, then I guess the Wii U really kind of was a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, the Wii U was never really pushed well
Yeah.
because it was very much like, oh, the Wii U is a thing and it's like 3 years old.
Yeah, exactly. Like I remember like I don't even remember the Wii U coming out. I just remember it like being there, and that was it. I was sort of, oh, I want one, but then like I say, they was just kind of went out of circulation, and I was at that point I was kind of like, eh, not really fussed anymore. Um but then I think didn't they like kind of like for most of the things that came out on Wii U, they kind of like upscaled into Switch anyway, didn't they?
There was a lot of stuff that got upscaled. The major one I remember is Breath of the Wild.
Hmm.
Uh, that was the major one that I know they upscaled off the top of my head.
Yeah, and Mario Kart as
But
well.
oh yeah, yeah, Mario Kart 8 is. Uh,
Which I think people
so
forget
those are
that
really,
is a Wii U game. I think Mario Kart 8. I know also the deluxe edition on the Switch, but I
yeah,
kind of think people forget that it was a Wii U game.
yeah. Uh, so yeah, I mean, there were there was also what is the hack and slash Zelda game that came out? They re-released that on the Switch as well.
Oh, um, something of Hyrule, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
something like that.
I know which one you mean. I can't remember the name. I don't want to gas it and say it wrong, but something of Hyrule.
Yeah,
But yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So but yeah, so let's just sort of take a step aside from streaming and gaming just for a second. Now, you've mentioned in your 10 quick fire questions earlier, you mentioned that you are an outdoorsy type guy. And in the podcast today, you've mentioned about your old wrestling podcast as well. So, what sort of outside of all this space, what would your hobbies and interests be? And like, what would be something about you that perhaps like, you know, even your community and the wider community might not know about you?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things about me is I absolutely love Broadway and musicals, which is something you look at me and you're like, this guy is just a white guy. Like, but I absolutely love Broadway's. I'm super excited to see Wicked. That just came out uh, on Friday. I'm so excited to see that in theaters. Uh, but some other things I enjoy are I love going hiking when I can.
Hmm.
Uh, I've done way too much camping in my life. I went through Boy Scouts growing up, and I've probably spent 1,000 nights camping
Oh,
in my
wow.
life. Yeah.
Wow.
Uh,
Like that's awesome.
uh,
So like would it be what kind of like sort of hiking like mountains, camping in mountains and stuff like that? Like what kind of scenery are we talking?
yeah. Oh, I love doing like mountain hikes. There's a mountain in Virginia called Old Rag, uh, and that is one of my favorite hikes that I've done. I haven't done it in a few years, and I really want to go back and do it again. Uh, but there's something about being outside that I just absolutely love and just like rejuvenates me.
Mm-hmm. So like
Uh,
it's just sorry to cut you off there, but it's just on the topic of hikes and stuff. It's kind of like this is something that interests me as well because where I live in small town Ireland, it's kind of got like a nice hiking scene, but the sort of thing that makes me laugh about it is that like in comparison to like the States, it's like child's play. So like our biggest mountain here, at least where I live anyway, the peak of it is 800 meters from sea level, which is like, you know, up and down. It's like a 6, 7 hour kind of day that you're doing, but like I've spoke to people from like Utah, for example, and they're like, talking if they want to go on a hike, it's a 3 day thing kind of thing. And it's like, it's the real deal. It's the proper business. And just sort of what our biggest hike, what we would call, is just like a sort of a walk in the park, like for you guys sort of thing.
Yeah, we East Coast, so we have the Appalachian Mountains kind of
Mm-hmm.
running up and down, uh, and those aren't super tall. They're probably very similar to what you're talking about, where it's 6, 7, 8 hour days doing a hike. But I lived in Colorado for a couple of months, and my cousin does a lot of rock climbing, and he lives in Wyoming, and they're doing 3, 4, 5 day hikes. They're doing the 14ers, uh, and it's just a different hiking scene on the East Coast than it is on like West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we're even in U.S. very still.
So what would be like the highest or like the sort of longest you've ever hiked for yourself? That'd be like 4 or 5 days
Uh,
or
I've never done any of the multi-day hikes. That is just a lot of stuff to carry.
hmm,
So if I can hike in a backpack, that is my kind of day. Old Rag is probably an 8 to 10 hour hike, I think, and that's generally kind of like the longer ones
yeah.
that I've done.
But I think it's cool though because it's like such a nice way to see like the places that you live and like such a grander scale. Like you could obviously like say you live in like a town, city, whatever it may be, or just on the outskirts, but you go up a mountain and you look down from the peak. I think you kind of see it in like a whole new light, and I don't think that that's like something that a lot of people really get to experience. Like I wish I liked hiking more than I do. I am very lazy when it comes to that, but when I'm out there, I love it. I I'm sure probably a lot of people who are like in the same kind of camp as me on that. But no, it fascinates me just the whole hiking thing because I think it's like I say, it kind of just shows you sort of how small we are in the world and like how big a place that it like really can be, and it's like it's just such an amazing sort of thing to see. It's like a whole new perspective almost on the scenery around us.
Oh, very much so. I think you get up on top of a mountain and you're looking out and you're seeing miles and miles.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different feeling of just you're where you normally are, and then you get up and see you're all higher than the trees, you're above the tree line, you're looking out and just seeing for miles, and you might see a couple of buildings and they're just super tiny. It kind of puts everything into perspective of I'm somebody, but I'm not a whole lot of something. I'm part of a huge something that I normally cannot fathom.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And like it is nice just to be kind of isolated up in the top of the mountain sometimes. Nobody about. It's just like it's when you can really hear how quiet it is, but it's in like the most sort of like tranquil kind of way. And like I don't know if you can relate to this, but this is something that I noticed quite recently. And this sounds really strange, but like I was walking to work the other week, and I think it was about 7:30 in the morning on like a Friday, and I work like in the city center of like our local city in Belfast, and I was walking to the office, but it was really quiet. Now this is like, bear in mind, it's city center, but it was so quiet, but it was so eerie, probably because I was like surrounded by so many places. But I've kind of felt that same quietness out in the mountains or in the countryside here, but it's had the exact opposite effect of me. It's like somewhat like peaceful. It's like not somewhat peaceful. It's incredibly peaceful. Like I don't know if that's something you've ever noticed, but it's such a strange kind of surreal feeling. Like I know that sounds random, but that was just something I noticed, especially like when you relate it to hiking out in the mountains and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um.
And
Sorry, go on, dude.
yeah, I was gonna say I'm from a small town in on the outskirts of DC and Richmond. I'm right in the middle of them. I live in Richmond now, and it's all hustle and bustle. When you get into the city, and then I kind of drive up to Fredericksburg, and where I'm from, and it's a different feeling, and there's something serene about being able to go to that small town feel, but also being able to have that hustle and bustle
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah, like that's kind of like where I live. Like at the moment, like where I live, it's like a small little coastal town, coastal slash mountain town. Like because we have the beach and we have the mountains. But it's one of those things. It's like 9 months of the year. It's like you would think that you're in like a sort of a big city. Now I say big city. It doesn't. It pales in comparison to the big cities in America. But like you would think you're in like a city. We get like a lot of tourists and stuff, and then it just is always like it's incredibly congested. But um yeah, but then like literally all you need to do is just walk for like 30 minutes away from there and look down on it, and it's just the most sort of incredible place sort of thing. So I get what you mean in that sense. It's like nice to just like get away without going too far almost.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So as well, just as well to touch back on, you're talking about your Broadway and your musicals. Is that something that like how did that come into your life? Like, is that something that you've always just been into, or was there like one that you saw that just really kind of changed everything for you in that sort of front?
Yeah, so it's just kind of, as long as I can remember, it's always kind of just been around. Uh, and it's always something I've just enjoyed. The earliest memory I have of going to see was it was me and my mom, and we were visiting my grandparents in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom and grandma are talking, and they say the waiter looks like some actor. I don't remember who it was. The actor doesn't ring a bell for me. So they ask him, like, "Hey, are you an actor?" Or they say, "Hey, you look like this actor." And he goes, "It's funny you say that because I'm actually in the community production of Rocky Horror Picture Show, or not Rocky Horror Picture Show. Excuse me, Little Shop of Horrors, the
Yeah.
other horror show." Uh, so we went to see it. I absolutely loved it. So it's kind of just always been around.
Mm-hmm.
I did some backstage stuff in high school with the musicals. They kind of just, I was never able to do one. I wanted to, but it just conflicted too much with basketball because I played
Yeah.
basketball through high school. So I just didn't have the time to do both. So I had to pick one. And I've just always stuck with them. They've always kind of been around. Uh, my mom and I will take a trip up to New York every year and a half, uh, and we'll leave Friday morning. We'll catch a show Friday night. We'll see a matinee on Saturday. We'll see a show Saturday night. We leave Sunday morning.
Yeah. Awesome.
We go up there for a quick, and we'll take on 3 shows while we're there.
Yeah. No, that's insane. Like I love that though, because it's like it's something that you keep that kind of hobby alive. It doesn't ever have to change, like no matter how far away you are from it. And is that something that like you and your wife are into together, or is that just something that's all you?
So it's weird because my wife and I are very into the same things. Like some of the first like things that we like connected with were Broadway shows. The TV show Survivor was very just of things that I felt like were very niche that I didn't really talk to anybody about. Were two of the things that we hit very like similarly on.
Yeah.
Like in March, we went on a cruise for a week that left out of New York, and while we were in New York, we went and saw Wicked.
Brilliant.
Uh, it is something that we both enjoy, we both love doing. So we were. I was lucky that it wasn't like, oh, I have to be drugged to the theater or anything like that.
Yeah, that's always like it's always like a benefit there, especially whenever, one of your like biggest hobbies also like coincides with like your partner's biggest hobby too, because there's sometimes is nothing worse than you being passionate about something, and then like the closest person in your life is like couldn't think of anything worse. Like it it's yeah, I've been there before, and it absolutely sucks. I'm in the same boat as you now, where like, my wife and I, we are into the same things, and it's like it's a blessing to say the least, like for real. But that's
So
awesome. It's
yeah.
so nice to just share that, I think, especially, and like, I mean, I'm assuming though as well, that was something you were into that before you even like met your wife, I'm assuming as well.
Yeah. So I met my wife in we matched on Bumble in March, April of 23. So it has been a very quick, not even 2 years for
Oh
us.
wow. Okay. Fair enough. Here, well, you know what? I respect that, because that's very much a case of when you know, you know.
It, oh, People had told me that forever, and when it finally hit, I was like, you know what? I know.
Yeah, absolutely. No, good on you, man. That's incredible. Like, I mean, I had no idea about that. Like, so obviously I knew that you'd recently got married, but I didn't realize that it was like as quick a turnaround as that. That's incredible.
Yeah. We got engaged just over a year ago, where we're going to be spending next week. For Thanksgiving, we go up to a local ski resort,
Hmm.
uh, and uh, we've done that for my family had done that for a couple of years, and then I met Erin, and my parents and her parents are best friends, and it is very weird. Uh, but you know, uh, my parents said, "Let's keep this up." We have a family friend who has a house up in the area, so we rented out for the week of Thanksgiving. Our parents are up there right now. Her parents, I think, are just getting there. Mine went up this morning, and then we'll join them later on in the week. Uh, We got engaged a couple minutes from the house on just a little lookout, uh, and we're going back up there for Thanksgiving again. So
Brilliant.
I'm excited
That's
about it. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, that's such a lovely story. Like, it's nice, and I think it's certainly nice as well that, both sets of parents get along. I think that's something that's important. For real. It saves a lot of headache
Oh,
anyway, for sure. But no, that's
it,
amazing.
it
Like,
saves a ton of headache. The fact that our parents are also like they live 5 minutes apart from each other helped a ton as well.
and like, did they know each other prior to you and your wife meeting, or is this just something that's happened as a result of?
No, we Erin and I went to high school together. She's 2 years younger than I am, and so we met on Bumble. Like we had heard each other's names,
Uh
but
huh.
weren't really familiar with each other. Uh, and then we hit it off. And then uh, when I think it was my parents invited them over for like a family dinner, and it got a little raunchy and weird at parts. I'm just going to say there were some meatball and sausages involved. I'll let you guys make the connections. And that's when they were like, you know what? Yes, this is it. This is the family we were meant to be with.
That's yeah. Like, again, it's just one of those things. Like, when I kind of think as well. When you do meet your significant other's family, like, if you don't dive into the deep end, um,
Yeah.
you know, it's not what I'm saying. There's no point in like pussyfooting around. Like it's good just to get sort of stuck in right into the deep end, and just kind of then you realize the sort of like the people you're around, and like I think that most of the time is for the better. Like, for me personally, like the first time I met my wife's extended family, and mainly really her immediate family as well, for like one of the first times, it was her nephew's christening, and let's just say I got a little bit too drunk that night. It was an all day kind of thing, and I got wasted. Like it was a big party kind of thing, so it wasn't really the most sort of unusual thing to be happening that day. But unbeknownst to me, and I woke up, so I'm like I woke up the next day, bit of a hangover, but I kind of like everything was in place as it should have been. Like so, I was like dressed for bed the same way I normally would be. My phone was sitting on charge. Everything was kind of fine. I was like, okay, cool, yeah. This is fine. This is normal. What had transpired was I had threw up in the bathroom and I was like sort of curled over the toilet in my boxer shorts while her sister basically looked after me. And that was like one of the first times that I ever met her family, and like that kind of everything was like everything has been incredibly solid since then, and we're married 4 years on now, so I think it definitely kind of turned out to be quite good. You could argue. But it's one of those things. It's like you're with like around the right people, like in that sense, and like everything does just sort of flow the way that it is meant to. So that's like an incredible thing. Like I'm incredibly happy for you in that regard, man.
Yeah, yeah. Erin's actually uh, in the comments. She left the three hearts. Uh,
Brilliant.
she's an absolute doll. I love her. She's great.
That's awesome, man. No, I'm very, very happy for you. Like that's so cool, man. So yeah, Bennett, it has been a pleasure having you on behind the camera. So I just have one more question for you. So this is going back to the whole side of streaming and gaming. Kind of almost forgot for a second that that's the nature of the pod. But yeah, so going forward now, obviously you've only been doing this for like a certain amount of time, and obviously you're early days in it as well, with diffraction things like that. So going forward, what are your like plans and or goals for streaming, like especially through diffraction, because obviously they offer a lot of opportunities. Like what is it you feel that you want to achieve out of streaming?
I mean, I'm going to give the blanket answer, and it's going to be the answer everybody probably gives, which is I would love to be able to make it a full time gig,
Mm-hmm.
because who wouldn't want to, you know,
Yeah.
playing games their full time job? But I also am realistic and know that would take a lot of effort, a lot of work, uh, and it's one of those things that you kind of have to fall into almost. So recent goal was to just get 1,000 followers.
Yeah.
I got that. My next goal is to double it at two, and then go up from there. Uh, so it's very much right now just keep chugging away, kind of the enjoyment out of it that I love getting. I would love to be able to expand, and see kind of as new games come out, play them, get fun, just have fun, live life. I don't have any necessary like strict goals of like
Yeah.
this many followers by this date. I want to, make this much, money, get this many, coins, diamonds per week. In a, to say I'm not in a spot to say those things because I am. I stream. Who wouldn't love to, have a realistic goal of so many diamonds a year?
Yeah.
Uh, but right now for me, it is just learn, expand my knowledge in what I'm doing, and if as others come in and start their journey, I would love to, be one of those first like leaping blocks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say, I'm going to be this person and have all the knowledge in the world, but if there is somebody new and they have questions of somebody who does it, I would love to be one of those people that, hey, this person is in that realm. They know what they're talking about. That kind of is where I would love to be.
Yeah, no, for sure, and that's what that is as humble as answer, as humble an answer as anything. Because one, like we touched on before, you do it because you enjoy it, and like sometimes I think you do get like a lot of streamers who, in their first 6 months, they do think they're like bigger than they actually are, and they kind of are like, they might have a good couple of months and they're just like, oh, I'm ready to quit my job sort of thing. It's like, no, slow down, dude. Like if you don't get that like one viral hit, then take a number and get in line kind of thing, isn't it really?
Yeah,
No,
that's just the nature of the beast. Is you can get that one viral hit, but what's after?
yeah, exactly.
You
Exactly.
can get that one video that gets the 2 million views, and are able to start making money off of TikTok. But what happens after that 2 million view, where you drop off and you're back at the 200 view jail, hitting that 1,000, 500 you're going to be at, because those are the people that want to watch you, and you slowly see that decline.
Yeah.
What's going to be that next driving factor that brings people back?
Yeah.
That's kind of,
No, 100%. Yeah. Because I think like sometimes when people get to like that point, that's when they kind of stop enjoying it and they kind of like sell out. They're the ones who you see all their content just becomes like, them holding a TikTok shop item and just running the same script where it's like, oh, somebody from TikTok's getting fired for this. Oh, it's just like, shut up. Like, I know it's kind of like, it is an incredible like money making industry. This is for sure. But I do think it's one of them things people like sometimes it's like the wrong people getting accidentally famous in a sense. Like, I know that kind of sounds harsh, but you've seen some of the garbage out there. That's like people just getting accidentally famous, and it's like, oh no, what is
you
the
mean we
next?
shouldn't run back the NPC trend?
I mean, maybe that's at the point where it can be brought back, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, remember this is funny kind of thing. Like, like whenever sometimes people like ironically, like older people ironically say like words like back in the day, remember people were said swag, and then people started saying it like ironically, and then it became part of people's vocabulary kind of thing. Like, now this is going back like about 12 years now or something like that, but that kind of sense. People start ironically doing the NPC streams because like they've died down, and now it's just like then it becomes like sort of the cool thing to do, and it's not cringe anymore. I don't know. Like it's an incredibly like fickle beast. Like I don't think there's any kind of real right or wrong way to kind of do it. It's just as long as you do it because you enjoy it and because it's what you want to do. Like that's like I think the most important thing that you can get out of it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yes, Bennett, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again for taking the time to appear on Behind the Camera with AndyGames. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners today?
Uh, uh, just the. Oh gosh, do I have any final thoughts? If there's any final thoughts, they've escaped my head. Don't come to my neighborhood after dark. Jump in a random white van with a strange man. Don't take candy from a stranger.
Unless it's Halloween.
True, unless it is Halloween, then take all the candy. But if it's a random day in May, be cautious.
Fair. Absolutely fair. So yes, Bennett, where can we find you on social media for the people to follow your content?
Really, it's just on TikTok. It's Powerful Cookies. Don't try and look it up. It is too difficult. It's not going to come up. Look up Bennett, Bennett. Hopefully it's me. It's a picture of me in a Santa shirt with a blue string from my head. If you need to look up the username, it is PWRFLC00K13S.
Amazing. There we go.
And really, I just use TikTok, so just go to TikTok.
Amazing. So yes, that is where you can find Bennett. And as always, I've been AndyGames_94. This has been Behind the Camera with AndyGames. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Whether you're listening at home or you're tuning in live on TikTok as we record this. Your continued support is always appreciated. It really does mean the world, and allows me to get to meet new creators and things like Bennett as well. And it's something incredible. So thank you all very much. We will be back again with another edition of Behind the Camera with AndyGames very soon. So stay tuned, and until then, take it easy. Peace.